Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Colton with Grand Valley Sporting Goods, and today is a very exciting day because Hoyt has launched their new 2026 flagship bows. We have a couple bows to show you here today, a couple that we're going to talk about that are not here but are going to be on the way. So without further ado, very first bow we'll show you is the new AX329. So this will be the short axle to axle version in the aluminum riser for Hoyt. So quick run through the specs. So ATA speed, or IBO, ATA is a little bit more accurate in my opinion, is 340 feet per second. Axle to axle length is 29.5. Brace height of 6 3/8 inches. Mass weight of 4.4 pounds. Peak weight limb option of 50, 60, 65, 70, 75, and 80 pound limb options, and a draw length range of 25 to 30 inches. So, very similar, if not dang near identical to last year's model, with an exception of, and a lot of people have been asking this for quite a while from Hoyt, is we have a new pressless tuning system. So this is the XTS tuning system. Very similar to Darton's, if you're familiar with it, because it is messing around with the limb deflection, but it is a little bit different. Obviously to try to get around patents, but I think they did very well with this system. So if we tear this limb pocket apart, basically what's underneath are two little wedges, if you will, facing in opposite directions. So you have your locking screws on the outside, and then in this little access port right here with the same size Allen wrench, you have a adjustable set screw that's pushing that wedge in or out, which is changing your limb deflection. And it's also nice too because they put indicators on here like Matthews does, so you can see, you know, get a good gauge on how far you've adjusted it and just get a feel for it overall. But not only does this change your left and right adjustment, but it can change your up and down tear too, depending on how you adjust it. So unless I'm unaware of some other company other than like changing your timing, which you don't want to do, they're really the only company that has a up and down adjustment for your tear without having to, you know, mess with your rest or mess with the D-loop at all, which is pretty cool. So other than that, they did change up the riser just a little bit from what I'm aware, comparing it to last year's model. My assumption is because with the new limb pocket and the adjustments, probably just different, I guess, loading points, if you will, and how the riser flexes, and change that, maybe shave a little weight off because this limb pocket, you know, definitely is adding some weight to it because it has to be bigger. There's more parts into it. But other than that, they didn't really change a whole lot, but really from my concern is, you know, the new tuning system really is the big thing. So other than that, they still have the pick mount for your sight. They have the integrate mount for your rest. Still really good quiver options. Same string system, same limb system from what I'm aware. And then same cam system. So this is the HBX Gen 4 cam with 1/4 inch draw length adjustments, and then 75 to 85% let off. And it's all done without a bow press, other than your timing now, essentially. So that's really cool. So for those that are at-home tinkerers like myself, granted I work at a bow shop, so it's kind of given for me, but this is a bow to look at now. Just because we have the pressless tuning system, you can mess around with broadhead tuning, paper tuning, you know, any kind of tuning at home. But also the fact that it's a micro adjust tuning now. You know, they didn't go with a, you know, shim system that you can pop in and pop out systems without removing the axle, but you get kind of more coarse adjustments. You're getting fine tuned with this, which is really, really cool. So another option that you have as well, so just like last year, I don't have the bow here yet, but it's going to look the same. So they have a short draw option. So the specs change a little bit on that. So the short draw cam system is a 23 to a 27 inch draw adjustment. And then your peak weight options, you have 40, 50, 60, 65, and 70 pounds. You don't have a 75 or an 80-pound option in this one. But the specs overall, like your brace height is just a little bit shorter at 6 inches to kind of keep up with the speed. But, you know, shorter draw lengths, you're not really sacrificing that as much as, say, somebody would with like a 30-inch draw at a really short brace height. And then the ATA speed of 310 feet per second, but that is at 27 inches at a 5 grain per pound arrow. So that'll give you just kind of a rough idea on what you're producing for speed. So that's the AX3 29. Let's move on to the next bow. All right, and here we have the AX3 33 featuring the new sandstone color, which in my opinion is pretty cool. Always like tan color bows, but it's definitely not quite bourbon at all. So those of you that aren't really a fan of the bourbon color, this might be another option for you. So this one compared to the 29, like last year's model, they have changed this up a little bit. Compared to the AX2 32, this is an inch longer axle to axle. So speed rating is 340 feet per second. Axle to axle length is 33 and 5/16, so 1 full inch longer axle to axle length. Brace height is 6 3/8, and your overall weight is 4.75 pounds. Draw weight options of 50, 60, 65, 70, 75, and 80 pounds. And then your draw length range is 26 to 31 inches. So back to the color options. One new color that they came out with that I don't have a sample of right now is the Georgia Clay color, which is another solid color option, and it's kind of unique. I haven't seen another bow like this. It's kind of a reddish brownish color, which is, like I said, pretty unique. Just like any other colors, some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but I can definitely say it's different than any other color that I've seen before. So again, very similar to the 29. So you have the new, I always forget what it's called now, the XTS shift system or tuning system. Change the riser up a little bit. Same HBX Gen 4 cam system. String system's the same. You still have your options for mounting accessories, and that's pretty much it. So one new thing that they did come out with for you knuckle draggers like myself is they have a long draw option. So they have a new cam system for long draw that came out with the short draw last year, so you aren't stuck with a completely different design bow. It's the same flagship bow, it's just a different cam system to get the longer, shorter draw lengths, and then thus changing the specs just a little bit. So I'll go over those real quick. Speed is going to be 340 feet per second. Axle to axle is 33 1/4, so just a little bit different because of that cam system. Brace height's a little bit longer at 7 5/8. So yeah, a little bit over an inch for the axle to axle length, and then mass weight of 4.85 pounds. Your draw length adjustment is 31 1/4 to 33. So that just gives the really tall guys out there another option for a long draw bow. Even just a handful of years back, I've been at the shop for 8 years now. When I started, there was really only like 1 or 2 options if you were like a 32 or even a little bit longer draw length. But now a lot of companies have an option. Really, you had to buy just flagships, and they were quite a bit more because they didn't really produce that many, so they had to make a little bit more money back. But now Bear's come out with the Paradigm that goes up to 32 inches. They have a couple more that go up to 32 inches. So you're getting more options out there, which I definitely like to see. So that is the AX333. And for the carbon lineup, we have the Hoyt RX10. So running through the specs on this real quick. So speed ratings is going to be 342 feet per second. Axle to axle length is at 3.5 inches. Brace height is 6 1/8. Mass weight of 4.1 pounds. Same peak weight options from 50 to 80 pounds, throwing a 65 and a 75 pound in there, and your draw length range from 25 to 30 inches. So other than that, you're seeing the same features on the aluminum models, again with the tuning feature, cam system and everything. But real quick, I want to talk to the person that hasn't bought a bow in quite some time. Maybe you shoot a lot, but you're due for an upgrade and you're just going through a lot of these videos just to kind of see what's out there and get a feel for things. At the end of the day, regardless of what I say or what else you see on the internet, go to your local dealer, test shoot the bow at your draw length and your poundage. Now, if you currently shoot a Hoyt, you want another Hoyt, by all means buy another Hoyt. But what our customers will vouch for us is we always encourage you to shoot everything in your price point. Hoyt is a very great option, but so are a lot of other companies out there, and frankly, that's why they get better and better every year, is they're just trying to compete for top dog. But if you maybe just got an archery a couple years ago and you really like archery, you've gone to some attack events, you do league, you're really into bow hunting now and you're just looking for that new upgrade. A question that we get quite a bit is really, what am I gaining with a carbon bow? Because going with a rolled carbon riser comes with a price point. So most people right off the bat are gonna think that it's just weight, which yes, you're shaving a handful of ounces off a aluminum bow going to a carbon riser, but there's a couple other benefits. One being that carbon isn't going to capture the cold like an aluminum bow does. So myself, I hunt late season fair amount. When it's 20, 30 degrees outside, I don't bow hunt with gloves on at all. It's just a personal choice of mine because I don't want it to change my grip. I don't want it to change how my release breaks, anything like that. So I just use a muff with hand warmers and I get my hands as hot as possible. I shoot an aluminum bow now, so when my hands are as hot as possible, it kind of warms up that grip a little bit. But I have owned Hoyt carbon bows in the past, and when I'm hunting in 20, 30 degrees and below, one thing I absolutely love is this bow is almost warm to the touch when you grab it because it doesn't capture the cold like any other metal bow does. But one thing I would give Hoyt credit to is this right here is the most durable bow out there. And I encourage companies to prove me wrong, but this is the most durable bow out there. And that being said, like, nobody is gonna put their bow through the abuse to really see that on like a whitetail hunt. Like, even if you throw the thing on the ground, like, I don't see risers bend that are CNC machined aluminum. I have if they get ran over by like an ATV or like their car or something like that. Accidents happen. But if you're going on like a extreme hunt, like a doll sheep hunt, had a customer that had a Hoyt bow years back, Hoyt carbon bow, and it fell out of his pack and tumbled down a cliff 40 feet. That bow was perfectly fine. He ended up killing his sheep at 103 yards with it. And there was splinters in the limb and the string was almost cut through, and he was still able to do that. Now, most of us are never gonna see that situation whatsoever, but if you're the guy that's like, I want everything absolutely bulletproof, no questions asked, there's never a guarantee with that, but a Hoyt carbon bow is going to be your best bet. But then outside of that, in my opinion, it has to shoot $500 better or $600 better or whatever it is compared to the aluminum bows that are out there. And if it does, and you're fine with the price point, by all means, go with that bow. But back when Hoyt first came out with their rolled carbon risers back at the ATA show, their debut basically was they parked a half-ton truck on 4 bows and did burnouts on them, and the engineers grabbed them and still shot them, which is incredible. All Hoyt bows, whether they're carbon or not, go through 1,500 dry fires on the riser, I believe, or maybe it's 2,500. Yeah, I think 2,500 on the riser, 1,500 dry fires on the limbs, 25 dry fires on the cam, and a million draw cycles. So it's over-engineered, which is not a bad thing by any means. If you're a guy that is going all over the world, all over the country to hunt animals, the last thing you want is your bow to fail on you. And this is a really good chance that you're never going to run into any issues with the bow itself. So just wanted to make that statement. Again, I never try to sway you in any direction. But for the price point, if all those things sound great to you, I would definitely look at a Hoyt carbon bow. But anyways, done with my spiel. Let's move on to the next bow. Oh, wait. Forgot to mention, also, just like last year, they have a short draw option. I don't have one here yet, but we should have some coming. So just run through the specs. Speed rating is 310 feet per second. Axle to axle length is 30 and 5/16. Brace height is 5 and 5/8. Overall weight is going to be 4 pounds, and then your peak weight options of 40, 50, 60, 65, and 70 pounds. Draw length option and quarter-inch adjustments from 23 to 27 inches. So let's move on to the next one. And here we have the Carbon RX10 Ultra. So running through the specs on this, it's got a speed rating of 340 feet per second, an axle-to-axle length of 33.5 inches. Brace height is 6 3/8 inch. Overall mass weight of 4.5 pounds. Peak weight options, like the rest, 50 through 80. Again, throwing 65 and 75 pound options in there. And then a draw length range of 26 to 31 inches. So again, just really not going to bore you with the same features on it because all the flagships have the same feature. One thing that piques my interest, though, that my reps sent me is they worked more on the efficiency of realistic draw lengths. So not everybody is a 30-inch draw like myself. Most are going to float around that 28, 29 range, which what companies really aren't honest about is either they're running IBO or ATA speeds. So ATA is a little bit more on the honest side of things to where it's a 30-inch draw, 70 pounds, and then 350 grain arrow, so 5 grains per pound. It's you can get your better guess at a shorter draw length, so like 29 inches at 5 pounds per inch is going to be a little bit lighter arrow, so you're going to get roughly about the same speed with it. But they showed the efficiency at different draw lengths and where the gains and losses are with it, which is kind of cool, which is what I try to promote in our speed tests with this. So if you haven't seen our videos before, I do a speed test with a 350 grain arrow and 70 pounds at 30 inches so we can see how close the ATA rating is or the speed that they claim. Because IBO, there's really no set standard to that. But really more so to just show the efficiency of the cam. Now, in the last probably 8 years or so, there hasn't really been a humongous speed difference between different bows. You're floating, you know, the last couple of years at least, the fastest to the slowest bow is like a 15 feet per second difference, which really isn't a lot. Now, there's plenty of people that focus on speed, and that's perfectly fine. But I just more so wanted to show the realistic speed at your draw length, because there is a drop off. You know, this cam isn't perfectly round, so the complete loadout point at that draw length is going to change. That cam isn't going to, you know, snap forward as quick because it's not going over, you know, a more extreme curvature in that cam. So it's nice to see that companies are starting to move in that right direction to where people can see the speed that they're really going to expect, because it's been a handful of times, more than a handful, to where, say, somebody's at a 28-inch draw, they're shooting 65 pounds and a 470 grain arrow, and they shoot through the chronograph, and it's 275 feet per second, and they go, wait a minute, I thought this bow was 340 feet per second. Well, that's obviously at a longer draw length, a lighter arrow, and everything like that. Like, I get it. It's kind of a standard so you can gauge that speed, but you go heavier in arrow, you're losing speed. You're going shorter in draw, you're losing roughly 10 feet a second per inch. And obviously poundage is going to be the difference, but I think most people get that, but they don't realize essentially how much that's changing. So that's really part of the reason why I do those speed tests, so you can kind of get a rough idea where you're going to be at speed-wise. Say, if you went to your dealer, you narrowed it down to 2 bows, they both feel awesome, but you're trying to kind of nitpick things apart just to see where you're going to gain with it. But anyways, just like the aluminum version, they came out with a long draw version for this. So long draw option, 355 feet per second on this one. But this speed is going to be at a 33-inch draw length, by the way. Still at, I believe, at 5 grains per pound at 70 pounds with it. But axle to axle length is 33.5. Brace height's a little bit longer, so just to help out with forgiving and a longer draw length. 7.5 inches, and then 4.6 pounds overall weight, probably just because it's a bigger cam system. Draw length ranges from 31.25 to 33 inches, and then peak weight options of 50 through 80, with again 65 and 75 pounds thrown in there. So next we're going to move on to the speed tests. So if you haven't seen our videos before, we're testing at a 28, 29, and 30-inch draw at a 350 grain arrow and 70 pounds. We have already tested PSC and Darton, so you can take a look back at those videos. But now obviously we have Hoyt coming up. Matthews is going to be right up next. And then we have Bowtech coming in hopefully at some point. I haven't heard of their launch date yet, but hopefully here pretty soon, so we can complete these speed tests for you. So anyways, enjoy the speed test. All right, so we're gonna get started with the speed test here. So ATA speeds on these will be, like I said, more realistic speed rating. So 30-inch draw, 70 pounds, 350 grain arrow. The AX329, the 33, and then the 10 Ultra are all at 340. The R10 is at 342. So we should get similar speeds across the board. So we'll start with the AX329 at 30 inches, 70 pounds, 350 grain arrow. 330. .332. So we'll do an average of 331. So not too bad, within 10 feet, and get rid of the string dampeners, and then D-loop. Whisker biscuit typically throws off a foot, so not too bad. And now for the 33. So like I said, we should see similar speeds between the two. .330. .331, which is pretty solid for a 33-inch bow. Okay, now for the RX-10. So we should see this about 2 feet a second faster. So expect around that 333, 334 mark. .335. And we'll say, even though these are similar to the RX-9, personally I think this does shoot a little bit better, a little bit less hand shock and vibration in the shot. .336. That's pretty good. Last but certainly not least, the RX-10 Ultra. .331. Another 331. So all in all, within 10 feet a second. So that's pretty good. And the RX-10 was 6 off. So I would say that's fairly honest. All right, so we'll set these up to 29 inches and do it again. All right, so Drew and I set these up to 29 inches. We'll start with the AX329 again. .322, so 9 feet loss, which is about average. .323. Okay, now for the 33. .322. .323. And the RX-10. $327. $326. So do 327. So 9 feet lost there. And then the Ultra. $324. And another 324. Yeah, I hit an insert in there. Tim's just dented a little bit. Okay. So we'll set these up to 28 and see what we get. All right, so we set these up to 28 inches. Again, we're going to start with the AX329. $315. So lost 8. $314. And 33. I think I hit that insert again. 308. Yep, we're good. Another 308. So quite a loss there. Yeah, it'll be 15 feet a second. R10. $319. So loss of 8. $318. And the 10 Ultra. 310. So loss 14. So again, the reason why we do this is just show the efficiency of the cam at your draw length. 20 to 30 is just kind of the more average draw length that we see. But it just goes to show, like many others, if you're around that 28-inch draw, might gravitate toward the shorter axle bow to help maintain that speed, getting a little bit more cam rotation out of it versus something that's a little longer axle, but generally going to be a little bit more forgiving. So other than that, we have Matthews coming up here next. Today is launch day, so hopefully I'm going to get that posted by tomorrow. And then other than that, just make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you get notified with any other bow reviews that we have coming up. We still have Matthews, like I said, and then Bowtech hopefully is going to be at the end of the month. But anyways, thanks again for watching. See you guys next time. Thanks.